Hello, I'm Deirdre Bruno, and I am presenting for Sociology 110 on Module 8, Social Changes in Behavior. To start with, social change in the last decade has affected many aspects of daily life, including physical environment, population, innovation, diffusion, and mass media. The physical environment, if you take a look at the two pictures here, you can see that global warming has really made just significant changes to our environment. We have an ice shelf in Antarctica. On the left is 2008, and then on the right you have 2018. It's just melted away because the temperature has risen 0.9 degrees Celsius since the late 19th century. A third of that has just happened in the last decade. When the temperatures rise, the ocean is absorbing that excess heat. Hughes urges society to address the environmental changes for human survival. We are leaving huge carbon imprints on the world. We're using too much fossil fuels. We are not taking into consideration the products that we are using, so there's a lot of waste and pollution that's building up. Just a few changes that we can make, even the food we eat can leave a carbon imprint. Some of the animals in the farms, if they're not carefully monitored, they emit a lot of carbon into the atmosphere. And so just doing little changes, recycling, using reusable bottles, walking or carpooling when possible, and just taking local produce and supporting the local farmers, and even going meatless a couple of times a week can really benefit our environment as a whole than any other time. Then as far as population growth, it is really taken off. If you look at the data here, this of course is 2 years old, but in the early 9th century, it took 7 centuries for a population to double to 0.25 billion. At that time, the population continued to grow, and then it doubled. Time eventually kind of slowed to a steady rate. That's where you see the line that kind of goes straight across and then drops down. And then between 1950 and 1987, we had our largest doubling time within one generation. We went from 2.5 billion to 5 billion. Doubling time has leveled off, but it's still steadily increasing. The main areas where we have the largest population growth is in underdeveloped countries. And the reasoning for this is that people are living longer and the mortality rates are down. We have better access to nutrition, education, and healthcare. And so people are living into their 90s, even some up into the hundreds. We have areas where children either were stillborn or they didn't make it past their first or second birthday. Now these kids are living to puberty and adulthood, where they can start their own families, and so we have more births and lower mortalities, and our population is just growing. We've had many innovations over the last decade. This is just a picture of like the smaller solar panels that we had. We started out with really tiny ones, and now we have these massive solar panels that if you look, even some grocery stores here in Phoenix where I live, I see it as covered parking, and even at the schools. And so it's powering that whole store just from those panels that are covering the cars in the parking lot. And so in 2009, we saw less than 16 kilowatts of solar ability in the world. Today, we have more than 500 gigawatts installed, and so it's one of the fastest growing reusable, renewable energy sources available. We also have computers that have gone from being very large that took up massive areas in offices, and now they're handheld. They go everywhere with you. You have your smart watches, you have your smartphones. The smartwatches track your movement, take pictures, you can talk to other people on them. There's just been endless technology growth. The United States is a global economy. We outsource a lot of our workforce. We have other people that we interact with from other countries just in our normal jobs from day to day. Our society is made up of mostly immigrant groups. We had people that came over in the beginning of America. We have people from Europe descent, Hispanic descent, African descent, just from all over the world. And so Asia, all over. And so a lot of the things that we do, such as the food we eat, the music we listen to, our entertainment, even like soccer, was originally based in Europe and Mexico. A lot of those Spanish countries play soccer, and they call it football. And then we also have our Tai Chi and our yoga that came from the Asian influences. So moving on to mass media. If you look here, the daily time that people spend with media, just using internet devices alone, it's 6 hours and 54 minutes. Social media, they say 2 hours and 25 minutes. I would say that from observing the people around me, it's probably much higher than that. And then time spent reading press media online is 2 hours. Then you got podcast, games, broadcast radio, streaming services. And so sociologists say that there's something called agenda. Media sets the agenda of what people think or talk about with others. We saw a lot of this last year, especially with the politics and with the COVID-19 pandemic. Then they have a cultivation effect, which occurs when images are displayed to influence public opinions and behaviors, especially regarding social policies. Social policies are crime, dealing with crime, welfare, politics. Right now, I know that there's a lot of talk about gun control. These are just some of the things that are or trying to be influenced at this time. Then we have the information revolution. Thankfully, we have the good old computer. Again, I think I spoke earlier about the huge, massive computers that scientists used to use, and now that they're smaller. This is a good old IBM, and now we've gotten to the place where these things are actually replacing humans in the workforce. If you go to McDonald's, you can order your own food at a kiosk when there's somebody standing right there behind the counter that could have just as well have helped you. And then so a lot of the stores were self-checking out. We're basically taking jobs away from these people that we could have had before in those positions. The companies are saving money by utilizing this technology. And just a few more things that have happened with the introduction of computers. We have an increase of power through the means of unlimited information and knowledge. This unfortunately creates an unequal source of power because people that are poor and don't have access or the means to get the internet or have computer service, they're not going to have the same knowledge or the same opportunities these people that can access this information do. Computers alter the way that we behave towards each other. If you're looking at a computer screen, it's a lot easier to be nasty or rude to a person. People just don't have the same manners as they do when they're speaking one-on-one. There's also so much more missed information because you can't figure out the tone or the affect that people are putting behind the words. You have these emojis now that people are using. But even with those, some of the time there's so much misinformation. We are at higher risk for breach of privacy. With the social media especially, there's a higher risk for hackers to get your personal information. Modernization of underdeveloped nations is going on as Western societies come in and outsource labor. We actually have a very unequal exchange going on because we're coming in, we're taking their resources, and we are paying them the minimal amount for their wages. And so at this point, they become reliant on us for jobs and just resources for health and education. All of this makes them more dependent on the world system. Urban and industry starts overshadowing agriculture, and their population size increases in density. Their labor becomes more specialized, and their knowledge base is becoming larger and more complex. This is also due to the new technology that's available. Right now, even in the slums of India, they have the availability to go online onto computers and look for jobs in the city, whereas they would not have had that resource available before. Even the women are going online now. A poll showed that they are going online and they are looking up their rights as women. And so we see quite a bit of social change as well. The unfortunate side of things is with the new technology and the new influences, their culture is going to change as well as they are open to more of the Western influences. There have been many social movements throughout history. The first one, women's rights. Susan B. Anthony, she campaigned for the right to own property, the right for women to vote, and also for the right for them to keep their own wages. In the 1950s, the 1960s, we had Dr. Martin Luther King. He led protest. Everything was based on nonviolent speeches, protest, and for change and modification to the fundamental values of society. Rosa Parks also helped initiate this movement in 1955. She was arrested for refusing to give up her seat for a white gentleman as she was sitting in against racial segregation. Then you have the LGBTQ movement. Brendan Howard was a gay rights activist in New York City who chaired the Gay Activist Alliance in 1970. And then the first gay city supervisor in 1977 was Harvey Milk. Another social movement, we have the environmental movements. We could just go on, but all of these together have benefited society